It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
Get the fuck down!
With all of the videos I've done thus far, especially my Star Wars videos, I find myself being incredibly negative. I don't necessarily have a problem with being negative, especially when it comes to expressing one's frustrations and critiquing things like I have been with Star Wars and other film and game media. With that being said, however, it's nice to be able to talk about something that you enjoy for once, something that doesn't make you miserable when you think about it. Today we're here to talk about something positive. I know it's scary, viewer, but don't worry. Let me wrap you up in my sweet embrace and share with you something that I love. I'll be doing a mostly positive video on Star Wars. Shocking, I know. I say mostly positive because as I was writing this script, Disney has yet again decided to yeet what minuscule ounces of faith I still had in them handling Star Wars with any amount of respect right out of the airlock. If you've watched my past few videos where I discuss current Star Wars news, you'll know that I am no fan of Disney and Lucasfilm's treatment of the franchise. If you haven't seen those videos, I'd highly recommend checking them out after this one, so stick around. Meanwhile, these cultural vandals known as Disney and Lucasfilm continue to parade around the corpse of Star Wars like it's Weekend at Bernie's. Despite the charlatans over at Disney and Lucasfilm waving around the ragged and decaying corpse of Star Wars, I still love it. I still love Star Wars, and I don't mean Disney Star Wars, I just mean the franchise itself. As well as being an avid collector of Star Wars merchandise, I also spend my time online with some of the coolest people I've ever had the pleasure of interacting with. We talk about any and all things pop culture related, but a large majority of the time, it's about Star Wars. Feel free to follow me on Twitter, by the way, at MetalGearMando. Go on. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Despite what some may think, the Fandom Menace does not just spend all day hating on Disney and Lucasfilm, although they certainly give us a lot of material to work with. No, instead we often discuss things that we're excited about, things that we're passionate about, such as the two real trilogies. That's the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy for all of you Reylos out there. We also talk about the expanded universe and all of the amazing characters and story arcs that it's given us, such as Mara Jade, Thrawn, Darth Bane, Jedi Master Zalo, and Satele and Bastila Shan, who just so happen to be two of my most favorite Jedi of all time. Today's video, however, is not about the old expanded universe. It's about a Star Wars show that hooked and dragged me deeper and deeper into what has now become my favorite era in Star Wars history. A period of history where Jedi, peacekeepers of the galaxy, led legions of battle-hardened troops into large-scale battles that would see great suffering to all sides involved. A time of unrest that would see the Republic become undone by its own corruption and bloated bureaucracy. A time which would introduce us to some of the most vile and treacherous villains. And a conflict that would eventually give birth to the most powerful Sith Lord, the likes of which the galaxy had never seen. Join me in today's video where I tell you why I feel that The Clone Wars is an essential watch for Star Wars fans, and how this is another exercise in Disney's ability to write characters that fans care deeply about. I was first introduced to Star Wars at the young age of 64. The first film I saw was Star Wars: A New Hope, and ever since then it's firmly remained in the #1 slot for my favorite Star Wars film of all time. After exploring everything that the original trilogy had to offer, I got to witness the prequel trilogy. I remember being in awe of Darth Maul during the Battle of Naboo. Seeing him ignite that double-bladed lightsaber was exciting, and the fight that ensued between Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon Jinn, and Maul was just magnificent. And we can't forget about Attack of the Clones, Jango Fett and the Slave One, Clone Troopers, Count Dooku, and a glimpse into Anakin's dark future. Last but certainly not least, we have Revenge of the Sith. That opening battle, it will just stick with me forever. It's just a beautiful display of science fiction space battles. Not to mention General Grievous, Emperor Palpatine, and more Obi-Wan. But then, all of a sudden, it was over. We were ushered into a new era, the galactic civil war between the Rebellion and the Empire. Don't get me wrong, the original trilogy films are still my favorites, but I missed what we were getting from the Clone Wars era. The ships, the armor, the weapons, the characters. If you're anything like me, you wanted more Clone Wars era content. You wanted to see more of what this time period had to offer us. What untold stories did we not have time to explore during the films? This, ladies and gentlemen, this is where the Clone Wars cartoon show comes in. Now, before we really dive into things, I want to give you a spoiler alert for some of the characters and story arcs in the series. So if you've yet to watch the Clone Wars series or you really care about spoilers, this is your chance to back out. Don't worry, I'm not judging you. You should watch the show. Alright, are you ready? Here we go.
This is where the fun begins.
The Clone Wars series is great for a multitude of reasons, but the one that stands out the most to me is the characters. Not only did the Clone Wars give us fans more time with characters that we already knew and loved, we were also given so many new characters to love and to hate throughout the show. Let's start by taking a look at some of the established characters who we got to spend more extended time with. My favorite would have to be Obi-Wan, and I feel that he benefits the most from the extended screen time more so than any other character, except for Anakin for reasons that I'll get to shortly. There's already a great deal of love and fanfare for Obi-Wan, and with good reason. Ewan McGregor was really charming, and he really stole every scene that he was in.
Chancellor Palpatine, Sith Lords are our speciality. Another happy landing. Let us not forget, Anakin, that you rescued me from the buzz droids. And you killed Count Dooku, and you rescued the Chancellor, carrying me unconscious on your back.
But the Clone Wars helps to add even more depth to his already likable character. The way in which the show does this is introduce a woman. A Mandalorian, no less. Duchess Satine. As you could probably guess, Satine was the Duchess of Mandalore. Her and Obi-Wan had met in their younger years when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn were tasked with protecting her on Mandalore. Their love for one another was hinted at throughout episodes that they appeared in together, finally culminating in Obi-Wan telling Satine that he would have left the Jedi Order for her.
Satine, this is hardly the time or place for... All right. Had you said the word, I would have left the Jedi Order.
This, of course, offers us a direct contrast with Anakin and Padme. Obi-Wan clearly had strong feelings for Satine, but he was able to put his duty and loyalty ahead of his own selfish wants and desires. This is, of course, unlike the route Anakin takes, where he indulged in selfishness and allowed himself to become attached to somebody which would inevitably lead him down a path of pain and suffering. As I stated earlier, Anakin also benefits greatly from this added screen time in the show. We're given many more glimpses into Anakin's dark side throughout the show, and it's quite eerie to have the knowledge that he's going to be the one responsible for the deaths of countless Jedi, either by his own hand or that of the 501st Legion.
Tell me what happened!
When I heard your little rat was on the run, I thought she might bring a large bounty.
Bounty?
I was going to catch her pet and turn her over to the authorities. Collect whatever bounty was due.
More importantly than being given a chance to look at his more cruel and darker side, we're also shown many moments of how charming Anakin can be.
How many droids have you shut down so far?
25.
Ah, you're falling behind. Let's go! Too bad we didn't bring 3PO along. How do you plan on communicating with these things?
Patience. Maybe they're smarter than we are.
Well, say something.
Just shut up.
And these moments really help you connect with him as a character a lot more. I have to say, I wasn't the biggest fan of Anakin in the prequel films, but I have to admit, Anakin is one of my favorite characters from the show. We can't just talk about the good guys, though. Star Wars has always offered us excellent villains. I want to focus on two, Count Dooku and General Grievous. Mainly because they're arguably the two mini-bosses of the trilogy. Emperor Palpatine obviously being the true mastermind behind everything, and the final boss, if you will.
Do it.
Count Dooku gets a lot of time to flex his powers throughout the Clone Wars series. This is to be said about both his power with the Force, as well as his skills with a lightsaber. His lightsaber skills are on full display when Dooku was forced to fight off his old apprentice Asajj Ventress and two Night Sisters, while blind, mind you. We see his immense power with the dark side when he's training Savage Opress to use the Force, and he continuously attacks Savage with Force lightning.
Now, lift them. Concentrate.
What you ask is impossible.
Impossible. With your hatred. Focus on your power building. Do not think of anyone or anything else.
I hate you.
Good.
How does one defend against such power?
A wise master does not reveal all his secrets at once.
Not only to show his new apprentice the power of the dark side, but also to remind him that Dooku can kill him, squash him like a bug at any moment. This is also another thing to note. We know Darth Sidious was quick to let Anakin kill Dooku during Episode 3.
Do it.
It was in that moment we got to see the Rule of Two in action. Dooku had been taking on secret apprentices in hopes of overthrowing Darth Sidious and taking his role as the Master of the Sith instead of just the apprentice. I always loved the stories where we got to see some Sith infighting, and there's certainly no shortage of that in this series. Next up, we have General Grievous, the cowardly yet powerful cybernetic monstrosity. My favorite episode when it comes to Grievous has to be when Kit Fisto and his former Padawan infiltrate Grievous's personal lair. And what makes this so interesting is they did so with the aid of Count Dooku. Sounds odd, right? Dooku was using this as a test to see if Grievous was truly a skilled warrior and worthy of leading a droid army. In this episode, we get to see not only Grievous's physical strength, but also how durable he is thanks to what he calls his improvements.
Don't let it go! We got him!
Don't let him cut the lines!
Hold him!
Sometimes I wonder why you submitted to the changes.
Improvements! I submit to no one. I chose them.
The most interesting thing about this episode is the small glimpses in what appears to be Grievous's original form. We see this through these statues that are found throughout his lair. The statues show his progression into the technological terror that he has now become. These are just a few of the central characters from the prequel trilogy that the Clone Wars series gave us more background to and really helped flesh out. But of course, what would any Star Wars media be if it didn't introduce us to a plethora of new characters? Now, this was a difficult section for me, I was trying to figure out who I wanted to take a deeper look at because there's just so many new characters. Not only were there new characters, but there was also background characters from the prequel trilogy, and the show really gave them their time to shine. Some characters that come to mind are Plo Koon, Kit Fisto, Aurra Sing, Bossk, Boba Fett, and more. But we're talking about completely new characters, and it would be impossible to ignore Ahsoka Tano.
Here we go!
When I first started watching the Clone Wars series, I could not stand Ahsoka. She is certainly meant to be the children's insert character for the show, which is fine, but her whiny and insolent attitude was just so annoying to me. This is especially true in the episode where Ahsoka disobeys direct orders from both Admiral Yularen and Anakin, which caused almost all of her clone pilots under her command to be killed in action.
Commander, we've been caught in a trap.
You're overreacting, Admiral. I can get us through. Blue Squadron, stay the course.
We're all set, Blue Leader.
I'm ordering you to return to the ship. We're going to need your help.
Ahsoka, it's too risky.
Get your pilots out of there.
We're far too outnumbered. They're breaking our lines.
Ahsoka, we are in trouble. I order you back here.
Cool your jets, Admiral. We're almost there.
It's too late.
Run for it.
Just stay with me, Axe.
Then when she gets back to the ship, she spends so much time whining about just how hard this whole general thing is. This prompts Anakin to give her a pep talk and prepare her to lead yet another attack on the Separatists. You know, after Anakin said, "Okay, Ahsoka, you're going to be in charge of the next battle," the clones just looked at each other like, we're going to let the child be in charge again? Okay. But this all makes sense for Ahsoka's story arc. She is a child learning to command troops in battle. She has a tremendous amount of weight placed upon her at such a young age, even for a Jedi. This also serves a dual purpose in my mind, as it also highlights the fact that the Jedi really shouldn't be leading armies. They're keepers of the peace, not soldiers, after all. War changes people, and the same can be said for the Jedi. But that's something that we're going to get back to shortly. Ahsoka begins her journey as nothing more than a child, but we get to see her grow throughout the season, becoming more confident, more competent, not only when it comes to her skills in battle, but also her attunement with the Force. I don't want to spoil her arc, so I'll leave it at that, and move on to the next character that I want to focus on for this section, Cad Bane. Cad Bane has to be my favorite character introduced in this series, and that's not something that I say lightly. Sorry, Rex. As a Mandalorian, I have a soft spot for scum and villainy in the galaxy, and of course that includes bounty hunters. Cad Bane is a Duros bounty hunter with an incredibly unique look about him. Very Western-inspired with that hat, the boots, and the dual blaster pistols. I've always been a sucker for dual blaster pistols. I just think it looks so cool. Cad Bane is a skilled combatant, and we see this on multiple occasions when he takes on Anakin and Ahsoka, while he's at lightsaber range, mind you. He's also highly intelligent, resourceful, and ruthless. I think the arc that exemplifies this best is when Cad Bane infiltrates the Jedi Temple and manages to steal a Jedi holocron. Now this is an impressive feat all in itself. Not many can say that they managed to outsmart a Jedi. Not only outsmart a Jedi, but sneak into their most guarded and sacred site, and steal from the Jedi Order. Cad would then go on to kidnap a Jedi in order to convince him to open the Jedi holocron, which is something that only a Jedi could do. How did Cad convince this Jedi to do what he wanted? Well, let's take a look.
This little box of yours, so I can get the information from this crystal, and your suffering will come to an end. Unfortunately, I don't have time to discuss this with you. Hit him again, full power.
I'm not sure how much more of this he can take.
Are you a medical droid?
No, sir.
Then step back and shut up. Drop him.
He's dead.
Looks like we will have to find another Jedi to open this holocron. Only next time, I will try a different method.
Cad Bane suffers no fool. Cad Bane does not fuck around. But what good would it be to have these excellent characters in a show if the stories being told weren't worth sticking around for? I can tell you that I was very iffy on the show when I saw this.
Hold it. Hold it. I said hold it. Wait. That's far enough. I mean it. Stop. I said stop. We're too big to fit in there. No, we're not. Watch this. You were right. Next time, listen to orders.
And of course, it would be impossible to ignore this. But my opinion changed when I saw the second assault on Geonosis, and I can't forget the Umbaran arc. The second assault on Geonosis was the point in the Clone Wars show where I knew I wanted to stick around. This is not only because I loved seeing the clones in action during Attack of the Clones and it was tickling some kind of nostalgia boner, even though it totally was, but it was because this was the arc that proved to me that the show wasn't afraid to push things a little bit. I mean, watch these clone flame troopers cook these Geonosian bugs like hot dogs on 4th of July.
Flamethrowers!
Master Mundi, do you read me?
And of course, this arc leads into a pretty sweet kind of invasion of the Body Snatchers horror, which just adds to the appeal of the return to Geonosis for me. But Umbara is the apex of the Clone Wars show to me. The Umbara arc is by far my favorite of the entire series. It's a very gritty, very boots-on-the-ground arc. Not to mention that it has a beautiful aesthetic. The planet itself is dark, it's foggy, it's full of deadly creatures. The Umbarans themselves, also dubbed the Shadow People, are incredibly elusive, and they use these strange and interesting weapons, including this fucking terrifying centipede mech.
That one's still got some juice in it. Waste it! Sure. No juice left in him either.
What makes this arc so special, though, is the way in which it focuses on the soldiers, mainly Rex and Echo, along with their conflict with their commanding officer. And no, I'm not talking about Anakin Skywalker. Their commanding officer in this arc is Jedi Master Krell. Oh, sorry, wrong clip. Jedi Master Krell is well known in the Grand Army of the Republic for being incredibly efficient, also for having the highest clone casualty rate of any Jedi. This is the arc that shows us how fear corrupts even the strongest amongst us. A Jedi scarred and warped by war. A Jedi who attempts to destroy the very thing that he vowed to protect. Krell betrays his troops and the Republic, making his troops kill one another by claiming Umbarans have taken to wearing clone armor.
Wait! I see them! They're disguised as clones, alright.
and he does this in order to trick Republic forces to fire upon one another. Krell would later claim that this was done to gain favor with Count Dooku, as he's foreseen the fall of the Republic and the destruction of the Jedi Order.
The Jedi are going to lose this war, and the Republic will be ripped apart from the inside. In its place is going to rise a new order, and I will rule as part of it.
You're a separatist.
I serve no one side, only my own. And soon, my new master.
You're an agent of Dooku.
Not yet, but when I get out of here, I will be.
It's episodes and arcs like this that make the Clone Wars one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars media that we've ever gotten. Now, with all of this being said, with all of the praise that I have for this show, I feel that the legacy of this series might be at risk. Disney is in control of the final season of the series. Disney, the company who gave us this. Disney and Lucasfilm, these companies that have a track record of showing that they don't care about their fans, and they especially don't give a damn about the legacy of the characters that they're responsible for. Clone Wars Season 7 introduces us to the Bad Batch, and begins with a very interesting hook.
I didn't tell the generals. They might think I'm crazy. In fact, you might think I'm crazy. What is it? I think Echo's alive.
The 7th season of Clone Wars is actually something that we've known about for roughly 5 years now. Full rough cuts of the first few episodes of this season were shown back in 2015. Now, why am I talking about this? Disney has let those videos be up for a full 5 years, and all of a sudden they decided to take them down.
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
This is because Disney is getting flack for censoring certain aspects of the original cuts of the episodes. The first thing that they cut was a scene where you see the Bad Batch has a pinup-style Padme on their transport ship, and they make jokes about wanting to be the ones who get to guard her, because, I mean, look at Natalie Portman. Who wouldn't want to guard that? This is such a silly thing to censor. It's not sexualizing her or demeaning her or degrading her in any fashion. And it's also a bit of a callback to the World War II style radio host that dedicated songs to soldiers that were fighting. They even did this in a Clone Wars episode.
As usual.
You're listening to the Grand Army of the Republic broadcast, the voice of the Outer Rim. This next one goes out to the mutt jumpers of the 224th, slugging it out on Mimbom. Keep your heads down and your seals tight, boys.
Star Wars has always had its roots in World War II, and this is just a fun little reference. The second instance of censorship comes from another episode, and this one is less egregious if I'm being honest. We're introduced to this new kind of droid that shoots out a ton of what looks to be electricity, and whatever it touches just instantly dies. Originally, this droid was shown off by Wok Tambor, and the way he demonstrates its power to Anakin and the clone troopers that he has trapped is on a captive native from a nearby town.
The energy tentacles seek out organic matter. When one of them finds its target, the rest zero in and all organic tissues are vaporized.
I can see why Disney wanted this cut, but it's not like we haven't gotten darker things in the Clone Wars series before, like fucking decapitations on multiple occasions. The reason I bring this up is because Disney is now in charge of the legacy of the Clone Wars series, just as they were responsible for the Skywalkers, and we all know how that turned out. Disney is going to have the final say when it comes to the send-off for these characters that we've come to love over the years. I don't believe that Disney has what it takes to handle these characters properly, and the reason for this is that they have a proven track record of failing to do so. As you all know, me being myself, I am rarely wrong, but in this case, I truly hope that I am. I want the series, these characters, to get the send-off that they deserve. Disney, preserve the legacy of the Clone Wars. give us fans something to love and to cherish without an asterisk, because God knows we need a win. To wrap this up, The Clone Wars is without a doubt my favorite expanded universe material when it comes to television and films. Hell, it even beats out some books for me, like the Darth Bane trilogy, and those are excellent novels. The Clone Wars has so much to offer to Star Wars fans, and I really hope that after this video, you check out the series, because there are hours upon hours of enjoyment to be had with it. It's not a perfect show, not by any stretch of the imagination, but it's the characters and the adventures they go on that'll have you overlooking the small flaws, and it will leave you wanting to spend even more time in a galaxy far, far away. And that does it for today's video. I know this was a longer video, and it's certainly the longest video that I've ever done. I had a lot to say about the Clone Wars, and honestly, I could probably do a few more videos on it. So if you liked this video, be sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Let me know if you want longer content like this, or hell, even just more positive content like this. Don't forget to comment below and let me know what you think about the Clone Wars series. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Have you watched it yet? Let me know in the comments below, and if you really liked the video, consider sharing it on social media, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter @MetalGearMando. Until next time, I will see you in the next video.